Hello good people of the internet, my name is Andy and you're watching Geek Curio, and in today's video we're going to be looking at my top 5 franchises that I would like to see made into tabletop RPGs. Hello there and welcome back. So first of all, what has brought this on? So as you can see behind me, I've got quite a few tabletop RPGs already and board games as well. And I do tend to find that I buy a lot of these based on franchises that I have a particular affinity to, maybe going back to my childhood, or I'm just really excited about it. So for instance, recently I received my Kickstarter of the Street Fighter's tabletop miniatures game, and the joy that I had of being able to unpack that and being able to play with some of my favourite Street Fighter characters has been absolutely amazing and very rewarding. I also recently bought, before Christmas, the Aliens board game, and being able to paint miniatures from the films as well as being able to play and act out scenes from the movie has been absolutely fantastic as well. So there are a few prerequisites that I need for this. So as mentioned before, we are looking to get actual miniatures for these franchises, and I have been looking at, and I have been doing a little bit of research, and although in some cases miniatures are already there, a lot of cases you just can't find them at all, and the only way you'd be able to get miniatures would be to either 3D sculpt them or download STL files for 3D printing. Another prerequisite is that I can actually think how the gameplay would work, how the mechanics would work, and take a lot of inspiration from existing games that I already have. The last thing you want is to have something that everybody wants but it's too complicated, or it just doesn't really fit, or I don't want to be shoehorning a gameplay into something that doesn't quite work. And finally, something that I think is important is being able to have the RPG elements, such as creating a character or using an existing character and also leveling them up over time by playing the missions. So let's get right on down to it and have a look at my top 5. Okay, so first up at number 5 is the franchise RoboCop. Now, when I was young, I managed to get to see this film when probably I shouldn't, and I got my Aunt Jackie to thank for that. But I was absolutely fascinated by the idea of RoboCop. My grandfather was a policeman, and I do remember when I was growing up, there was a bus stop opposite my house, and there was a huge poster of RoboCop stepping out of his car, and I just thought he was awesome. And the film did not disappoint at whatsoever. Now, how would I play this? So we already have games such as the Judge Dredd game that's out, and also you've had the Batman miniatures game. So that's how I imagine it would work. It would work as a skirmish game. So you'd probably control RoboCop, maybe have a few police officers as well, and have shootouts with some bad guys. I also think there's a lot of potential to bring in a lot of the scenes from the movies, such as the showdown with Ed 209, also the gas station moment as well.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me. I know you.
There's also a lot of possibility to be able to bring in some fantastic miniatures like Ed 209, which I think would be excellent. Also, things like the different types of RoboCop, so RoboCop on a bike, RoboCop standing up and shooting, RoboCop in the car as well. I think that would be really good, and also have a nice supporting cast of police officers that you can paint up. Also, to pick on the adversaries in the movie, so if you can imagine Clarence Bodica's gang being part of it, and why not even introduce some of the more recent developments, such as Joel Kinnaman's version of RoboCop. I know the movie wasn't very well received, although I did actually enjoy it. I think there was a bit of a political overtone in it, but leaving that aside, it was actually still quite an enjoyable movie. So at number 4, I was actually doing a lot of research on this, and then all of a sudden I did actually manage to find that a board game had actually been released at the end of 2019, which was a bit irritating. I'm going to tell you what it was anyway. It was going to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I was going to try and more focus on the comic book and the TV series rather than the movies. Now, the inspiration for that was coming from the the Turtles making an appearance in Zombicide, and I wasn't too sure whether that would actually turn it into a proper game. However, there is another game that's been out, so I'm going to have to try something else. And the substitute that I got for that is actually not from the film industry, but from the video game industry, and that is BioShock.
No! No! I won't hurt you!
Now, BioShock has already had about 3, maybe more games that's already been come out on the consoles and the PC. It has some fantastic antagonists such as the Big Daddy, and I believe there was a female one as well, not entirely sure. But you've also got the little girls, the myriad of creepy characters that you meet when playing through the game. Now, once again, going back, I would absolutely love to be able to paint a Big Daddy miniature, and apparently there are some that are out there, but they're not actually in use for any sort of game. Now, once again, when I was doing my research, there is a board game. However, it's not a tabletop RPG board game. It feels more in the vein of something like Game of Life or Ticket to Ride. So I still think that we could do a better job of the IP by actually making a tabletop RPG of that, being able to level your character up and earn some of the powers that you have, as well as being able to conserve energy as you would in the game. I think it would translate extremely well. And now at number 3 is The Matrix. Now, personally, I'm not a massive fan of The Matrix, and a lot of people berate me for that. However, I do feel there's a lot in The Matrix that could lend itself extremely well to tabletop RPGs. And the beauty of it as well is that it doesn't always have to be fighting or action. It could be stealth, it could be investigation, it could be puzzles. And perhaps maybe we can even put a little bit more of suspense into it. So perhaps you have to do an objective in a certain number of rounds before the agent starts chasing you. When it comes to leveling up, there is a lot of things that we can do. I mean, just the iconic line that Keanu Reeves actually said in the film.
I know Kung Fu. Show me.
Is just a very good example of how you can actually build and customize your own character exactly the way that you want it. And in my opinion, the amount of customization that you can do is almost limitless. I mean, pretty much any skill you could do. In fact, it probably would work well as just a standalone RPG as well. Now, once again, doing my research, there was actually a Matrix board game released in 2007. However, information on this is extremely sparse, and I don't believe it's in production at all today. In fact, I don't think it survived much production at all. So, yes, Matrix comes in at number 3 as a franchise that, yeah, I probably would enjoy playing it, and definitely would enjoy having a lot of miniatures to paint. Okay, so in at number 2 of the franchises that I would love to see put into tabletop RPGs is Ghostbusters. Once again, doing my research, there is actually a board game which was released, I believe, about 2 years ago. However, it seems to only be available in North America, so I may have to speak to my good friend Gareth, or aka Matt, to see if he can actually get hold of a copy and send it over to me. Now, why have I kept Ghostbusters in at number 2 when I actually took out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at number 4? The reason for this is because the board game that is out tends to be, or has been, based on the comics and the TV show. So I'm talking about real Ghostbusters, where I would actually like to see the real Ghostbusters as in the movie IP. So being able to have miniatures of Peter Venkman, Egon Spengler, Ray Stantz and Winston Zeddemore would be fantastic. I also took a lot of inspiration from the Ghostbusters video game, which came out in 2010, where you actually play as a rookie joining the iconic 4 Ghostbusters and also building up and getting upgrades along the way. Now, being able to have a nondescript character that you can literally insert yourself into the Ghostbusters franchise would be fantastic. I also see it as a bit of a very similar game to Zombicide, in that there will always be 5 Ghostbusters regardless of how many players. So you can play 1 player against a ghost, you can play 5 players against a ghost, and it'll take a lot of cues from Zombicide. Now, how would the missions work out? Well, it would be things such as needing to capture a certain ghost, and you'd probably be getting a lot of scattered terrain as well in order to create obstacles. The ghost would be controlled by DICE AI, and what I mean by that, if you ever play a game of Blood Bowl, you may know that when the ball hits the ground after kickoff, you have to roll a d8 to work out what direction it's going in, and that's the sort of thing that I would see the ghosts being able to be controlled in that way. You'd also probably have a minigame where it would be a case of the ghost would either try to escape or the ghost would actually slime one of the Ghostbusters. The Ghostbusters would actually be trying to hit the ghost with the proton packs to try and lower its HP, and the lower the HP, the greater the probability that you would actually be able to capture the ghost. I think this would be a fantastic thing to see, especially having miniatures of iconic ghosts such as Slimer and the Marshmallow Man, as well as pretty much other ghosts that have appeared in the franchise as well. Missions can just be very, very simple, or they can actually be based on scenes in the movie as well. I think it's a really good opportunity, and yes, there are games of the real Ghostbusters, but like I said earlier, I want to see the real actors immortalized as miniatures.
Ray, when someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes!
So before I get to my number one, I'm going to give you now a few honourable mentions. And before I do that, I'm just going to quickly ask a favour of you, and that's if you've liked this video so far, please remember to hit that thumbs up button below. If you haven't subscribed already and you like what I do, there is a subscribe button below, and you can also hit that bell notification so that you get notified when I release some more videos. So first of all, let's look at some honourable mentions. So these are some franchises that didn't make the list, and the reason for that was they tended to be, I think I struggled to actually do the RPG element, or in some cases I struggled to think how missions or gameplay would work. So the first one, and I was a bit disappointed with this because I would have loved to have been able to paint these, was the Terminator franchise. Now the problem that I had was being able to fit these into an RPG narrative. So it always felt like it would just be a case of run away from the Predator, run away from the Predator, and I didn't think that would be fun at all. Possibly we can have a Future War one where it'd be the man against the machines, but it just felt like something that may have been done way too many times already, so I decided to take it off the list. Other ones that I've had mentioned to me were likes of the Goonies, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, and even James Bond. Now all of these are massive franchises in their own right. Maybe not so much the Goonies because only one movie came out, but it's still very, very much iconic. And if I was to think, would I like to be able to paint miniatures from all those franchises? Damn hell I would, yeah. But once again, it came down to the way that the game would play, and I couldn't think of an easy way that we can actually play a game using those franchises. And finally, I'm going to mention a few others. So we've got Dragon Ball Z, Sword Art Online, and Attack on Titan. Now, Dragon Ball Z I know is absolutely massive, and I think it would be a very popular board game if something was made. However, I'm a little bit late to the party with that, and I haven't really caught up with the anime. I have some idea of what's happening in Dragon Ball Z, but not a great deal. So I probably couldn't really talk about it with as much enthusiasm as someone who has followed the franchise for a long time. Sword Art Online and Attack on Titan, now I can actually think of very easy ways that these can be made into tabletop RPGs. However, I think they already have been many times over, although not in the way that I probably would have done them. Now, Attack on Titan, oddly enough, I'm a big fan of Attack on Titan, and I would love to paint a miniature of one of the Titans. I think that would be fantastic. There is a board game out already, however, the Titans are actually portrayed in cardboard, which is a bit disappointing. But once again, when I was thinking about how the game would play, it probably would be very, very samey, and there wouldn't be much difference between the missions. So that is the honourable mentions, and I'll be right back with you in a second for number one. Okay, so this is the one you've all been waiting for. What is my number one? So I'm going to talk about a film which came out in the late 90s. It has quite a few well-known actors in it. It did actually include a certain very young Doogie Howser. So my number one franchise that I would love to see made as a tabletop RPG is Starship Troopers.
They sucked his brains out.
Now, I was in my teens when this movie came out, and it is absolutely phenomenal. Now, I'm quite a big fan. Granted, the second and the third movie were pretty much dreadful, but the original one, directed by Paul Verhoeven, was absolutely fantastic. I think there is so much potential with this as a game. So, if you could think about the scenarios such as Whiskey Outpost on Planet P, where you would command a squad of Starship Troopers and trying to defend yourself against hordes and hordes of arachnids coming at you. You can also do the scenario where the failed invasion of Clandafu, where you are expecting most of your squad to die, and also you'll be probably doing a retreat as well. I think it would work fantastically, and also love the idea of being able to paint miniatures of the arachnids. So the soldier arachnid, the bugs, the flying ones, the brain bug as well would be fantastic. Now, the good thing about this is I've been thinking about this a lot. So I am actually going to be putting my head together, and I'm going to try and find some like-minded individuals to put together some rules where people could actually play their own version of Starship Troopers with probably just a few minis, counters, tokens or whatever. So hopefully in the near future I might be able to give that a go. Obviously it's not something I'll be able to release because I don't own the IP to Starship Troopers, but I think it would be absolutely phenomenal. I think it would be a really good fun game, and there'll be plenty to keep yourself busy as well. So that has been my top 5 franchises I would like to see made as tabletop RPGs. What do you think? Put comments down below, and also suggestions as well, because there's a lot of franchises I would love to see turned into miniatures, board game miniatures and tabletop RPG. And what sort of ideas would you have in the games that you would make? Let me know and put that in the comments down below. So thank you for making it this far. If you have enjoyed the video, once again, please smash that like button. And if you're not already subscribed, it would mean the world to me if you did so. That's it for me. Stay safe and take care.